Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Gold podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. Jack is not here, but actually he is, thanks to the magic of the internet. Jack, say hi to everybody.
Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you from a distance.
From a distance. This is how you like it, right?
It's probably a good day because you've got something going on with your voice, and I don't want to, whatever you have, I don't want to catch, that's for sure.
It's a slight bronchitis. They thought it might be a blood clot, but I'm good. So everything's fine. And speaking of which, we have an excellent guest, Ethan McDonnell, the head coach of Choate. Do you prefer Choate? Is it Choate, Rosemary Hall, or Choate?
Yeah, that's the official nomenclature, but Choate suffices. That's what most know us by. And thanks for having me. Super honored and humbled to be here. I listen to this podcast a lot. It's gotten me through as a young, emerging head coach, sharpen my iron and learn. You get me through cutting the grass and doing the dishes, and I'm thankful to be part of your guys' banter today, which to me always seems somewhere between a longtime married couple and the cool uncle and the cool nephew. So I'm really thankful to be here.
And the divorced couple too. And the divorced couple too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty great. That's actually the best description of Jack and I's dynamic ever, I think.
Yeah. That's pretty good that he listens to us when he cuts the grass. That's pretty good.
That's where I come up with my best plays. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's how we do it. So, Coach, let's kind of talk about this season so far. We're doing well. We're 8-3, feeling good about some of our victories. You got that OT win over Westminster. You have a ton of promising players on your team going to play college next year and the year after. Just give me like a little bit of a rundown. We've only got a couple games left, right? How do you feel this season has gone as opposed to your preconceived notions going into it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we obviously coming into the season on the heels of a breakout season last year, in which, we graduated, after which we graduated 14 seniors. And given our roster size and school, that's a little bit harder to replace. And we've been building our culture and program for the last couple of years by bringing in really young kids and growing them throughout the program. So we had enough juniors last year, current 2024s, who were in impact positions that felt like, while balanced age-wise, where we would skew a little young, we would have enough senior leadership, but I knew we'd be thin. So we had a incredible offseason, a really great trip to Philadelphia in preseason as a fully intact and healthy roster, and had great scrimmages and showed really well against the likes of Radnor, Seton Hall Prep, and Fairfield Prep. And I may have jinxed this in my first coaching meeting late February as a staff. When I was like, I think we can make a run if we stay healthy. And sure enough, in our first game, one of Jack's former players, actually, I think one of the better midfielders who ever played here, is currently a junior, and Gordy Leary went down. We haven't had him since that game, and it's been a comedy of errors since then. That Westminster game you referenced, for example, our entire first line midfield was out, a typical boarding school situation. There's 175 kids on campus that had the flu. So in spite of all of that, I think we're somewhat overachieving, particularly this last week. We talk about a group every year, that our best lacrosse needs to be played in May. And when you're chasing a Founders League playoff spot, trying to hunt 1 through 4, as strong as our out of conference schedule is, and the other, juggernauts that are on our schedule, that playoff run really comes down to these last 3 games, Trinity Pauling, Hotchkiss, and Loomis, which is where we find ourselves. So I'm super proud of our young guys who have stepped up, how our seniors have emerged as leaders this year. We had 6 captains last year for a reason. 11 of those 14 seniors receive votes. So if I'm a junior on that team, I'm not saying much or doing much in the locker room, and they've stepped up in a big way. So there's not a ton of freshmen in this league. They get a lot of time. And on Wednesday and this past Friday night at Salisbury, we had a freshman LSM run most of our time. 3 of our short stick team middies are sophomores or juniors. And again, the 3-headed monster at attack has gotten us through some of those games. I'm really proud of the grit and poise that we've shown, particularly this last week. Friday night we go up to Salisbury, which is not an easy place to play, and find ourselves down 6-1 after the first quarter and managed to win that game by 1, not in a late comeback fashion, but we're going to put our foot in the ground here and dig out of this hole. And very similar on Wednesday, we found ourselves down 7-3, middle of the second quarter, got to half down 8-7, and essentially ran away with it at 14-10 late, which puts us in a great spot for these ensuing games. So there's still a little bit of somewhat of a traffic jam for spots 3 and 4 right now between a couple of teams. So tomorrow's game is a big one for us against the Bearcats.
Coach, there's a couple of theories on this, and I just caught a little bit from you. Is at your school, a number of schools in your league, obviously they allow postgrads. The ISL doesn't allow postgrads, but you said your team is very young and you have a lot of young players and you want them to develop so they're really ready to play when they're juniors and seniors. So do you rely on your postgrads to come in and give you a nice bump every year? Or are you one of these guys who really focuses on developing your younger players so come junior and senior, they're really able to take the team in their own hands and have great leadership and presence on the field?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix, and it's a balancing act for sure. One of the harder jobs so much of the day, I wish I can just go back to being an offensive coordinator and drawing up man-up plays, and I think we do it the right way here in terms of managing relationships and coaching hard but loving harder and being a part of our kids' lives. But about once or twice a week, I remove myself from that, and it's kind of like me playing Madden, and I put on the general manager hat. I'm literally looking at my board right now that's color coded, and so I see guys that are here now but are gone next year, and I try to balance that out so we avoid what we had last year, graduating 14 kids in 1 year. Postgrads obviously help. They fill holes for us more so than anything else. We have 1 postgrad this year. We have 3 coming in next year, just based on what we graduate in terms of what needs to be immediately ready. We need an X-cover guy. We need a midfielder that can take the load of what our senior Tommy Greenhaw is doing right now for us, for example. But everything is thought of and decisions are made within the context of our culture. So how we approach the PG conversation, and this is somewhat of as a school as well. We want it to be a seamless addition to the senior class. And the more guys you have, I think the more postgrads you have, rather, I think you open up the opportunity for that to be kind of their own little nucleus. And I went to Choate. I was the captain of the football and lacrosse team, and I was a aspiring fullback and inside linebacker. I'll never forget, we recruited a PG fullback, and I got moved to center. And so when I took over, I was obviously wanted to build from the floor up, not just for being on the field ready, as you alluded to, Jack, but so much of our leadership and culture is built in the off season. And I think culture is best player led, not coach fed. So the less turnover there and leadership, the better. And so, I'm also, the last piece of that is a coach that really prides himself on development and developing players. That's the fun in it. And postgrads are great. We had a couple of really great ones this last year. I think we have a great one this year. But having gone to Kent, how quickly time moves here. And so just for my own emotional and heartbreak, I'd rather have kids here for longer than not. Certainly it helps if they're committed to colleges and those sorts of things. But as we do our projections at the beginning of the admission cycle, and we say, okay, what positions do we need and what grade? I foresee and would, I'm really excited about a potential after next year to not need to take postgrads moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because I played hockey, football, and lacrosse at Kent, and the PG, some of them would come in, some are better than others, obviously, but some of them would come in and expect that they're just going to play. Where, you got the freshmen, and I was a freshman, a sophomore, and there's progressions, and you work to get to certain levels, and, and it's very disappointing when someone comes in and takes your position on That's going to happen. That's life, right? But when you have players come in and they just expect to play and they have that attitude and they don't understand the culture, sometimes it's very difficult to find a place for them to fit in, because you can have all the best players on your team, as you well know. The best teams don't always win. The best team wins, but the best teams don't always win.
Yeah, and that's honestly my first question to postgrad candidates is like, what are you looking to get out of this experience? If you want to if you want to play lacrosse year round and you see this as somewhat of a means to an end, and a year a college has asked you to take, or a year you need it, we're probably not the home for you. But if you're choosing this on purpose and want everything that comes with the Choate experience off the field, outcomes have been really great there. I think of last year, our postgrad Grant Masterson, who is a freshman right now at Army West Point, crying, bawling his eyes out at the end of the season, was voted captain. We don't vote for captains here until preseason is over. So leadership is earned in the off season, and that's part of the talking points to postgrads. It's like, you're going to be part of our senior leadership council. We meet once a week in the off season. We read a series of books together. But yeah, we want you to hear a voice. And then sometimes, yeah, it is like, we also need you to score, 50 points. So, bring that.
Oh, by the way, you got to score 50 points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Coach, we have a lot of parents that listen to this podcast, and I think the most common question that I get asked when I talk to them outside of it is, how do I get my kids seen by a prep coach to be able to go to prep? What are the qualifications? Are there tournaments? Are there showcases? Should I be talking just to the club directors? Like, how does that work? And I know it's different for everyone, but what is your process for bringing in a freshman?
Yeah. So, I mean, number one thing for us is you have to be academically within our wheelhouse. We're a highly selective school, and you need to have some sort of demonstrated excellence. And that's not always or solely in the classroom. We have some really gifted kids here. Don't get me wrong. We had a midfielder last year who's at MIT right now who exhausted our math curriculum. I was taking math classes at Yale. And we have some kids who work really, really hard for their B pluses and A minuses, but they're exceptional community members. And they also sing a cappella or play the trumpet, play another sport, or they score 60 goals, but also have great grades, right? So that's the first piece. And I let them know, what they're kind of getting into. I think we offer an exceptional lacrosse experience and is a platform for them to grow as student athletes and for them to chase dreams and develop and try to attain those goals. But at the same time, it never comes at the expense of the student experience, which is why you apply it and look at a place like Choate Rosemary Hall. Obviously attacking the classroom and putting those things in your introductory emails, demonstrating some sort of rigor, taking advanced or honors courses and some academic curiosity, trying new courses, those kinds of things is super helpful. In terms of getting the ball rolling, other coaches have said this best. I think we're relatively an open book and open campus. I think, if getting ahead of the admission cycle this spring and reaching out to a coach to come check out a practice or check out a game and see campus, I think those are really important. We don't really love to recruit players. We love to recruit families. So doing so with your parents, scheduling a phone call at the beginning, these ensuing months are obviously really busy for us because I like to have a pretty thorough phone call with the player and parents before we get them to campus and those kinds of things to make sure that they're, I don't want to say worth my time, that's a colloquial way of saying it, but there's been a lot of kids I'm like, man, it's a great player, and I get so far along the process, I'm like, well, you got 3 C's on your transcript, like we're not going to be the school for you. In terms of being seen, the game and the club scene has grown so much. And access to film is grown so much. I think the younger you are, the more important it is to demonstrate athleticism and competitiveness than necessarily skill. There's a lot of kids, there's both ends of the spectrum there, right? Like, this kid is a savant. I think he'll grow. And maybe he can handle, the load. It's one of our top middies right now, 26, who's been a best player yesterday and was on Wednesday and was our best player Friday night. He's a small, undersized kid, but I know he's going to get a lot of calls on September 1st. And I was like, all right, well, this guy can play. And then, we have another 26 who was like, all right, this guy's going to be a project, but he can windmill dunk from the restraining line. So I can teach that kid how to play lacrosse. So that's really important. In terms of showcases and stuff, there are some out there, like the Road to Prep and 3D used to run one. I find those can get saturated at times, and I think coaches, our staff certainly does, or other schools in the prep process that are out on the road in the summer. I coach summer lacrosse, so I'm out most weekends, just simply like you would applying to a college or reaching out to a college coach, sending us your summer schedule. I think seeing guys, everyone's highlight tape looks good, particularly if you're a specialist. Like, I don't really want to watch goalies and face-off guys highlight because they don't lose and they don't get scored on. So like sending me a schedule is super helpful. and, making those connections. So I think, to answer your question in a shorter version, I think applying to schools like ours is a great dry run for the college process, because schools are very different. You want to see them. You want to meet the coaching staff. You want to get to know the school. You want to learn how to write those emails. I get a lot, right? So, what catches my eye, developing some film, and then yes, the final piece is I work with club directors and asking them about how's this kid, is he coachable, is he a good teammate, does he chase shots, does he ride,
Right.
those kinds of things.
Where are my Lax fans at? Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA championship time, meaning we need you live and in person getting hyped for every single goal. The Division I NCAA Women's Lacrosse Championship, May 24th and 26th in Cary, North Carolina. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/WLacrosse. Class dismissed.
Summer is just around the corner, and if you're looking for a great boys or girls lacrosse camp, Piatelli Lacrosse has you covered. With camp locations in Northern Connecticut, Western Mass, and Central Mass, Piatelli camps are a great way for players to develop their lacrosse skills and improve their game. Our coaching staff is made up of current college and high school coaches that are experienced in working with youth-level lacrosse players. In addition to boys lacrosse camps, Piatelli is excited to offer the Panthers girls camps for players in 1st through 8th grade. For more information on the Piatelli boys and girls lacrosse camps, including dates and locations, visit piatellilacrosse.com/camps. That's PIATELLI lacrosse.com/camps.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Coach, you went to Choate. You were a student athlete at Choate. When you were at Choate, did you ever think you'd end up, or something you wanted to do to get back into the prep school environment and have the opportunity to lead young men and coach?
No. By the tail end, I thought it'd be something I'd be interested in as sort of a sunset to my career, which is what some of my advisors told me. The prep school world was new to us. I'm from Canada originally, from Montreal. My oldest brother opened the door for us. He actually went to Kent and graduated in 2005, was a 2-year kid there. And so I had assumed I was just going to go there until my middle brother got recruited to play hockey at Choate at the Dale Dunbar's Pro Select Hockey Camp at RPI. He is, I think I was always told that was the mistake or the unexpected one, because my middle brother is like 6 years older than me. So I was the ball boy and water boy for football when he was at Choate, and that's pretty much the only place I had applied. My dad was a railway mechanic in Canada. Both my brothers went on to great careers. One's in Canada, my other works on Wall Street, has done very well for himself. Each time they've been hired, a Choate connection has been involved. So in 2000, I graduated in 2009. Entertained some college offers. It was not the best time given the financial crisis to apply for financial aid as an international student. Went back home and went to the John Wilson School of Business at Concordia University. Thought I was gonna work in finance, and I got a call from my advisor at Choate, who was also the dean of summer school, and he was like, "Ethan, we just had an intern drop out. I need someone like next week. It pays $5,000 in 4 weeks. You live in the dorm, you teach, you coach." I was like, shoot, $5,000 in 4 weeks. I was like, yeah, I'm there. And then 2 days in, I was like, damn, I think I'm gonna change majors. That was 12 summers ago. So quickly became a history major and joined the faculty at Choate, kind of right out of college. I've done a lot here since then. I've worked in admissions. I now work in the development and alumni relations office. I was the associate head coach of football and lacrosse for a long time, and thankful to have had incredible mentors and coaching head coaches in front of me that I was able to learn from. because it was in that time period. I was like, all right, am I going to lean into the teaching piece or is it the coaching piece? And I'm fortunate to have, found my calling in my late 20s and now early 30s.
So you're a Montreal Canadiens fan?
Huge. Yeah. We're going to be the next Rangers. So we'll take a couple of years of suck to get the cup back in Canada. Yeah.
I got a question. So you grew up in Canada, you grew up in Montreal.
Yep.
Was lacrosse prevalent in Montreal when you were growing up? Obviously, it's all boxing in Canada for the most part. And obviously, I'm a big believer in boxing as a great tool to, I think every youth player and high school players should play box lacrosse because it does so much for your game, your skill set, your intellect, and learning how to play in spaces, and it toughens your game up. But talk a little bit about your experience in Montreal growing up and what lacrosse was like.
Yeah, so Montreal has a very interesting history with lacrosse. It is in some ways the birthplace of box lacrosse, the home of one of the first recorded, I think it was the Montreal Shamrocks, who was a sister club affiliate of the Montreal Hockey Club, which then became the Montreal Canadiens when the NHL. Oh. So the turn of the 19th century and turn of the 20th, end of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century, it was a hotbed for lacrosse. There's famous video clip in black and white of a guy taking a two-handed, wooden stick to a guy's head. That was Montreal versus Toronto.
Without a helmet on, right?
Without a helmet on, yeah. And a lot of those guys played for the Maple Leafs and Canadiens, and that was like their summer training. And then, Quebec is, lives and breathes hockey. My nieces and nephews are still up there, and, they don't even reach over this table, and they're still like chasing triple A or double A. I'm like, oh my God. So I thankfully learned in grade 7 that I was not going to make the NHL and was looking for another sport. I was very thankful. The private school I went up to there, my science teacher approached me one day. His name was Chuck Baranowski. He's since passed away, but he moonlit. I did not know this at the time, but as an NLL ref, and was, although living in Montreal, part of the OLA, Ontario Lacrosse Association ref certification program. And he was trying to launch this, what was called the West Island Lacrosse League. So I joined that. I was a novice, and that was the first year ever of that association. I don't want to say this, without self-aggrandizing myself, but I got too good for that league and got noticed. And the beauty, and where I learned the most, the beauty of playing lacrosse around Montreal, is that I think we are surrounded by the hottest of hotbeds in both Ganawage and Akwesasne. So I played my junior in Ganawage and Akwesasne. I had a cup of coffee in junior A with the Akwesasne Indians, and then when college in the States didn't work out, I went back and ended up having a really successful and fun career playing senior B. Tried to play senior A. But again, in the QSLL and the TNLL, the Tri-Nations Lacrosse League, which kind of creates that one league. It's senior B, man. There's 50, 60 fans in the stadium, and we're playing the St. Regis Braves out of Akwesasne, and Jeremy Thompson's their face-off guy. Brett Bucktooth is on their man up. Brandon Francis was a fighter for the Buffalo Bandits. Van Horn, who played for the Rochester Nighthawks, comes out with his stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, what is this? And it was great. So that's probably where I learned the most. Was playing on those two reservations. I still have incredible connections with those guys. We ended up creating a little club team at Concordia, and we were nasty because we had two guys from the Ganawage Mohawks who were taking classes there. So it was cool. And I agree. I think box, I'm a big constrained learning approach advocate. I think, for example, keep away is the best ball drill that you can do, and we do it almost every day. And box is full contact keep away with cross checking and slashing, in my opinion. So it is the accelerator of skill, and we pull a lot from that in our offensive and transition identity.
I like that. I like that quote, accelerator of skill. I've never heard that before, but it is so true. And all skills of the game, not
toughness
just one.
Toughness too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's actually Montreal my college career. I'm trying to think what parts of this story I can tell on air. So I was at St. Mike's and I was not having a good time. I was injured, and my friends came to visit, and we, we're in Colchester, so we're right across the border. We drive over to Montreal, and we have some fun, but my wallet gets stolen, and I have to cross the border. So I remember being in the car, not feeling great from the festivities. I'm like 20 years old, and I'm sitting in the car, and I'm like, please, I don't know who's up. Like, I don't know who's listening. Listen, I did like a little prayer in the back. I was like, just get me across this border. I'm going to change my life. I swear to God. I like, like everyone has that moment. That's my only moment in my life where I did that. But I distinctly remember being like, just get me across this border. Please don't get me arrested. I need to get across. Like I'm going to leave St. Mike's. I'm going to find the best place for me. I'm going to have a great life. I promise. Just get me across this border. And there was a shift change at the border, the car before us. So that car got searched and they waved us through.
Oh.
And it's like, I know that's like doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people listening. They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, I wish I could tell you the rest of the story, but it was very impactful in my leaving that school and finding Clark. My best friend went to WPI. So I just went and lived with him in Worcester, and there's 10 colleges in Worcester. And I was lucky enough to get into Clark and play for Clark. And it was changed my life. I talk about it all the time on the podcast, and everyone gets mad because it's Clark. But listen, the right place for you will change your life in the best way. And I believe that that's true for prep schools. I believe it's true for the right public school. I believe it's true for the right college and the right job. All of those things will change your life for the better when you're in the right fit, right? And I think that's, we talk about that a lot. What's the right fit? What's the right place for my kid to go to college? What's the, how should he be prep for 2 years? Should he be there for 4 years? Should he PG? Things like that. And I think that a lot of what we do and what we talk about comes down to that, and even if you do all the research, even if you put all the effort in, you can still choose wrong. We were having sorry, I just keep telling stories. We had a dinner, a team dinner the other night, and before our game yesterday, and we were talking to the kids, and they were asking me all these questions about, I don't know if you've experienced this. Kids always ask me questions about what it was like back in the days now, which means I'm old. And they were just like, well, yeah, like what's your like advice for us? And I was like, what do you mean, like life advice? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I hope that the one thing that I teach you is that if you prepare for things and you succeed, that's great. But if you prepare for things and you fail, that's also okay. You have to learn from it. But if you don't prepare for anything and you succeed, it means nothing. Yeah. And they just looked at me like, what? And I was like, think about what I just said again. And then we lost the game yesterday, and all the seniors are sitting there bummed out. And I was like, do you remember what I said yesterday? And a couple of them did. And I was like, tell them what I said yesterday. We prepared, we lost. We have to learn from it. Like, it's not like we didn't prepare. We were ready, but we got beat. It happens, and it was, it's one of those things where it's just like, I saw this, the coach of the Celtics, Missoula, was like, I'm not a basketball coach. I'm a leader. I'm just here to like help people, and it's resonated. I saw it like last week, and I keep thinking about it every time I close my eyes because it's the most true thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. We talk about that a lot. There's a lot there. I think that's so true. And it's funny you say that. I find sometimes I'm not a coach. I am a motivator, confidence builder, and reality checker at times. At this point of the season, we're putting in a couple of wrinkles to our man up to keep the guys fresh, maybe adjusting a few things based on scout, but it's mostly, reaffirming and reinstilling one of our cultural pillars is belief, and those kinds of things. And some of that's generational. I think this generation really needs that. And I think tying to your first point, it's definitely tied to the college process. A couple of quotes I begin with when talking about finding your next home, or whether it's boarding school or college. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I stole one from my buddy Chris Garland. Shout out to him out in Michigan. It is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. And I think so much on social media or the club scene certainly does not help. Those guys are just largely most interested in putting college placements on their website. It's I played with this guy, he's going here, like he sucks, but like you don't even want to go there. They don't have the major you have. So like the major you want. So what's the gripe? But no, you're right. I think I thought coming in when I first became head coach, I was going to out scheme everyone in this league. And that's just kind of the chip on my shoulder. I am a disciple of Andy Shea, Mike Daly, Bill Belichick, someone who did not play college in the States, someone that had to, work their way up through the coaching ladder and build their own little network, and, failed to learn. And, I think our first year failed in ways that, maybe didn't have the leadership or the culture. And so pivoted away from, all right, like spend less time on the playbook and building my drill bank, and maybe a bit more time in turning teenagers into young men. Because whether it's, we're down a goal at Salisbury, or it's, having a tough conversation with your buddy in an off the field context, or managing the college process, that takes a certain level of maturity, and being self-reflective. So it's colloquial and it's overused and cheesy, but the life lessons that come from sports and coaches, I think is sometimes overlooked.
I couldn't agree more, Coach. And we have this conversation a number of times with our guests. I want to get your take on it, but I think parents have expectations for their kids. And I tell these young dads now, like, I never had any expectations from my kids. I wanted my kids to play every sport. I wanted them to experience. They played squash, football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer, lacrosse. But I wanted them to have fun and have an experience, a good, positive experience. And the reason why I got in the club business was I didn't like what some of the other club programs were doing. I started a team. I didn't really get into the club business. I just started a team, and then more of my friends, we involved in, we're a team concept. We have the same coaches, and, it's not about recruiting. It's about having a good experience, developing your skills, working hard, and learning how to compete as an athlete, and be challenged on the lacrosse field. Maybe have an opportunity to play players who are maybe better skilled and more bigger, stronger, and maybe they work a little harder than you do, and that's why they have a little bit of an edge. So you're in an environment where expectations are so high, probably from the parents too. They come in and they expect, if you look at your website, right, you've got guys that have gone on to play in the MLL, PLL, ACC, IV, NESCAC, had a great success after Choate. So how do you manage those expectations? And, what do you say to the players when they come in to explain to them that it's not about you and getting recruited, it's about us and being competitive?
Yeah. Focusing on where your 2 feet are has been a recurring theme for us the past week. Look, I think some of the more difficult conversations you have with parents, I try to hang my hat on. Like, at the end of the day, it's coming from a place of love. Like, I love my boys, and I know parents love theirs. And sometimes it gets lost in translation relative to realistic outcomes, or realistic expectations to whether it's to play or to the next level. So I have found that if a difficult conversation, or if me being the quote unquote reality checker comes out of the blue, that can be more of a speed bump to go over for the family. So I'm actually going to back up a little bit. And the college process for us is very much part of our player development model, our PDM for each kid, which includes, we try to have a one-on-one with our guys. I can't be with more than 3 kids on the lacrosse field in the off season per coach. So try to spend a lot of our time in the off season as a group. And then in these one-on-one conversations, talk about largely stuff off the field, how things are going academically, all those sorts of things. At the end of each season, we do exit interviews for our returning players, what they need to work on, where they see themselves falling in the depth chart next year. So via that route, that we've already established this relationship of feedback and honesty. And sometimes they're tough, I know you want to play attack, but I don't think it's going to be your spot next year. Work on this. So if you approach it that way, and I think develop that relationship, it's a little bit easier. All right, show me your list. All right, well, these first 5 are going to be a real reach for you, both athletically and academically. And sometimes that's harder to hear than others. I think, when I talk to the parents, I've somewhat, not necessarily a rule, but my feedback is always like, if it's in season and it's about playing time, like I don't want to talk to you, like tell your son to come to my office. I'll open up my afternoon. If you want to talk to me about his mental health, or the college process or, his academics, I'll open up my afternoon. And so parents are part of that process for the players, and they need to understand the reality too, because especially at the Division I level, sometimes it has very little to do with you. Like if you're a face-off guy, right? Colleges are only taking 72, right? So are you better than 71 in the country? And then they're like, I didn't think of the math that way. And if you're right, so, and assuming they're all taking a full roster, and some aren't because they're leaning on the transfer portal still. I try to have frank conversations with kids too about what they want to accomplish academically, because we are a school and we have a roster where kids will entertain an SCAC offer over a mid-tier or mid-major Division I offer for those same reasons.
Where are my Lax fans at? Present! Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA championship time, when for 3 days in May, Philly becomes the epicenter of the lacrosse world. Experience it all live and in person. The NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championships, May 25th through the 27th in Philadelphia. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mlacrosse. Class dismissed.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hedden, head girls lacrosse coach at the Frederick Gunn School, an independent high school in Connecticut. We play in one of the most competitive prep school leagues and place athletes at top college programs. To learn more, visit gogun.org. That's GOGUNN.org.
I talked to a mom today, and her son has aspirations to play Division I, and he's not a Division I player, but she didn't realize there was only 70 schools that offered Division I lacrosse, or 72, whatever it is. It varies, every year, because some drop and some go. Lemoyne's Division I now, Merrimack, and she was trying to find some information about Boston College. She didn't know Boston College was a club program, and it's nothing to knock. She's doing her research, but she didn't know there were 375, 400 Division III programs, 80 to 95 Division II programs, and I get a lot of kids that say, oh, NESCAC, Ivy, ACC, but there's so many other schools, the Dickinsons, the RPIs, the St. Lawrence's, there's so many opportunities out there for student athletes to get a great Clark, Springfield, Western New England, in New England, to get a great education and be able to play and be on the field. I mean, I didn't leave the field for 4 years at Springfield, and I wouldn't have been able to go on and play professionally and go to Australia and coach and do everything I was able to do if I hadn't played all 4 years, because I came out of school a much better player and a man than I would have if I went somewhere and didn't play.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our goalie from 2019 was one of the best goalies I've been around. It was a 4-year starter for us. Went to Loyola, goalie U, in my opinion. And ended up transferring. He called me. He was like, it's obviously an incredible program. Coach Toomey is the best. Loved him. But it's like, I'm the 5th goalie. Like there are some practices I don't touch the ball. So let alone play, right? And that's part of the lacrosse piece we talk about. When I counsel families on the lacrosse decision, it's very much like a college counselor, trying to understand the geography. Do your parents have to fly to your games? So can they go to most of your games, right? Urban, suburban, do they have your major, Greek system or non-Greek system? Where do you live? The kid's like, I never really thought about this. And then the list actually gets pretty small after you start doing that. And then it's like, all right, can you play there? And even then it's hard to tell kids too, the difference between projections and, current play, right? So we see some incredible lacrosse players in our league. And we have some kids who step up and do a great job. We had a junior LSM last year who, was charged with covering some, big time ACC freshmen who are starting right now as freshmen in the ACC. And, in their end of year meeting was like, do you think I can play here? I was covering that guy. I'm like, well, that kid at 22 is going to be a lot different than you. Right. So yeah, you maybe got him in high school, but that doesn't mean you can go play at Duke. Right. So that can be hard too. Is you've grown, you're not going to grow anymore. That guy is. But yeah, I think, a lot of kids don't know, but especially at the D3 level, a lot of the incredible programs that are out there, and those are really attractive to our kids. I don't want to lump them all as the mini NESCAC, but other schools like Franklin Marshall, Washington Lee. We have kids interested in engineering, and I'm like, have you heard of Clarkson? It's one of the best engineering schools in the country. Like, no, I never. And they're not bad. So I think that's where I try to, be helpful in expanding the list a little bit. And by the way, Division I MCLA club is not a part-time job, right? They have budgets. They they're a lot of them are aspiring to become D1 programs, and we've had kids get into really, really, selective undergraduate programs at Wake Forest. And they're like, I'm going to go play club and at Wake Forest. I think that's what's beautiful about this game. When I hung up my football pads, I knew that was it. But just because you're not being a recruited athlete, like not only can you play in college in some fashion, I actually almost played for you, Jack. I was on the Auburn Aviators. I tore my ACL the last day of training camp. Practice at Clark, beautiful facility.
It is now.
I was tearing it up too. I was so fired up, and now.
Who are you going to play for, the Rockhoppers or for
the Aviator?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now I walk with a limp. No, it's it's a sport that you can keep giving back to, and just because you're not getting recruited to play, NCAA Division I, II, or III doesn't mean you're not playing anymore.
Yeah, I've had a couple of players go play at club, and even I had a player that went to Notre Dame and played club. So some of these Division I programs have great club programs. If that's the school you want to go to, you can still have an opportunity to play, because UMass Amherst has a club program. So, and they're very competitive, like you said. Let's go back and talk a little bit about Choate and what's different about Choate, and what experience did you have as a student athlete that you remember that really changed your outlook in life?
Yeah, well, that's a heavy question. I would say most would say this, that those who have gone to a boarding school have worked at one long enough, but the relationships, the amount of faculty that, it is called the experiential learning experience for a reason. And tied to that as faculty, we are in loco parentis, right? Like we are the adults in these students' lives. So whether good or bad, on the field, off the field, I signed up for that. And that's what I, appreciated most from my student experience was, as a teenager trying to figure out life, when shit was hitting the fan, having a supportive adult in my life, and friends that span all over the world. It's actually my reunion weekend. I'm excited to see those guys in a couple hours here. I tell guys all the time, whether you're here for 1 year or 4 years as a postgrad or an underclass freshman, like there are people here that will be in your wedding, or vice versa. Everything is accelerated here. Relationships, because you live and eat and go to class with your peers. And so if you're doing that over 1 or 4 years, that you build incredible bonds that are different than I think a public school or even a day school experience. And because of that community, that's something I wanted to get back into. I also, bled blue and gold and had a really great lacrosse experience. And when I found out this was my calling, I wanted to selfishly, based on my experience here, help build this program into something special and at the next level, and kind of disrupt the order of the Founders League, which I think we're on our way to doing. Still got some work to do relative to our mission and goals, but that was a big thing for me and wanting to come back and stay.
Choate is a co-ed boarding school,
yep.
right?
Yep.
And grades 9 through 12. And I remember back in the 80s, I don't want to age myself here, but
you just did.
I know the facilities at Choate were, back then were incredible. But now, the campus at Choate it's unbelievable. The facilities, just everything about it. The buildings, it's been around for a long time. You walk on and you look around and you just can't believe you're at a high school.
It's got a college feel to it. And, I just recently had some kids go on NESCAC visits and come back and they're like, yeah, it's nice, but it's like,
it's not like Choate, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but
it's true though. It's unbelievable. It really
our kids are very fortunate and they're very blessed, but they work really hard. They work really hard to get here. They have a lot of support to get here, and they're not here without people. We remind all of them, remind our guys of that all the time and talk about gratitude. I think what makes Choate a little bit different, we're hard to define relative to some of our peers that have, kind of put their foot in the ground about who they are. Our chairman of the board would try to describe us as the Stanford of boarding schools. We are highly innovative, highly intellectually curious, very technologically advanced. We're one of the few schools that is actively adopting AI, teaching kids how to use it as a tool. We're not banning it or ghost banning it on campus. We have a one-to-one iPad program. We have a $12 million math and computer science building that was designed after Google headquarters. Our educational experience is highly collaborative. You're very rarely doing work on your own, and entrepreneurial. You have sort of graduation requirements here, but what you can take and focus on is so drastically different in my locker room. We have 9 signature academic programs that serve as like college majors, if you will. Science research project, the arts concentration is another. There's environmental immersion program that essentially changes your course load your junior and senior year, and you're literally taking college courses. Our size puts us in that Goldilocks, just right. We're 850 kids, but 250 of those are day students. So that's a great opportunity for us. We want to own our backyard and on the lacrosse side of things. But the boarding population remains relatively small compared to some other schools at 600. So you get, really big school resources. We have over 350 courses, 90 interscholastic and intramural programs. Our kids come from over 40 states and 40 countries. But at the same time, we do school meeting once a week because we're not that big, where we can't have everyone in the room. You're not allowed looking at your phone, walking around the crosswalks. You're supposed to look people in the eye and say hello. We don't have an athletic requirement here. We have an extracurricular requirement, and that can be a lot of different things, 6th class, community service project, intramural. So it is literally a place that you can carve your own path. And, we have a lot of like-minded individuals in our locker room relative to what they want to do on the field and what they want to get out of this sport. What they do off the field is so drastically different. And I think that's really cool, that kind of diversity in our locker room. And how I build Choate relative to the Founders League is like, we're a white collar school with a blue collar program. We want to recruit kids from Exeter and Andover and go to toe to toe with Salisbury and Avon. That's kind of colloquially how I sell my program. And I think guys buy into that, who again are looking for the student experience first and understand the kind of doors this place opens, and what you'll get out of this educational experience. But at the same time, I do think we're playing in the best lacrosse league in the country. So guys that are looking for that, I think it's a great home. And then, the location, we have the train station in town that's MTA and Amtrak that will get you to New York City. We're right off the highway, but feels like we're in the middle of nowhere when you're on campus. Downtown Wallingford is literally abuts our campus. So you can walk into a typical colonial New England town, Center Street and Main Street, a bunch of restaurants and cafes. So while our kids work really hard here and the days are somewhat long, they're still teenagers and have so much to do on the weekends, going to New Haven, etc. So it's the best of a lot of worlds, but it's not for everyone. I do know that. So
are you one of the few or the only coach in your league that actually played at the same school you're coaching at?
Good question. I might be. Yes.
I think that's an advantage. I mean, for, coaching players at the same school that you attended, because what they're going through. You have a better understanding what it's all about, what the expectations are, what the demands are,
Yeah, 100%. We have a new assistant coach this year, our lead assistant. I'm so thankful. Our lead assistant from last year moved on to Wesleyan. And much like our players, I hope you're not here forever and go on to bigger and better things. We hired Jeremy Moses, who's been fantastic. Our defensive coordinator, he was the head coach at Hall High School. And I remember putting on the group chat last week. I was like, "Hey, fellas, we're going to go a little lighter today. It's the midterm." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, just wait when we get to practice." And you get a sense of where kids are at, and knowing the academic schedule. My spouse, who's super supportive, and thankfully a boarding school product too, so she understands. All right, I'm cutting up film at midnight last night because I was dealing with student stuff, and but I get a really good vibe from her and being like, "Hey, this midterms this week, or a lot of assignments for juniors coming up, so you got to meet the guys where they are." It is an outlet. It shouldn't be an additive stressor to these guys. So, and then the other piece is the pride of it, right? I try to instill that in our guys. So we have little things like locker room rules. Anything that says Choate can't touch the floor, or helmets can't be upside down, those kinds of things. I think that comes from me having played here and want to leave this place better than I found it. I see myself very much as a steward of this program, not necessarily its captain.
Yeah, everyone always asks me why I coach at Hopkinton, this small town that they have a history of having a good program, but I grew up a mile away and my school wasn't hiring. So I go back to give back, and it's taken a lot out of me this year, but it's very rewarding. Yeah. And I think that's a great kind of note to end on, is, some good lessons to take from this podcast, some great information about Choate, and just everybody trying to find the right fit, man. Don't force
Coach,
it.
last quick question.
Sure.
Who's expected to win your tournament, and who are the final four?
So that's going to be an interesting one. We're kind of in a neck and neck right now with Trinity Pauling, Hotchkiss, and Avon. We all kind of play each other over these next couple of days. I think Loomis and Taft have solidified the 1 and 2. What order that is, I think, will be determined next Wednesday. The win at TP for us, and I'm a big fan of Kirk's. I have, because he's Canadian, but also I just have a lot of respect for him. We go toe to toe in box too. I coach box for 2A, and but in any case, that was a huge win for us. And if we can get the job done tomorrow at Hotchkiss, and I think we're sitting pretty good. And then maybe look at the play upset a little bit. So that's what's great. I feel like we're in the playoffs already, because it's
that's great, exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Good luck, and really nice to get to know you a little bit. I hope I see you on the lacrosse field, and go Albany Firewolves in the championship.
Fantastic. Yes, and go.
You must be a fan of the NLL.
I'm a big fan of the NLL. I lean towards the Toronto Rock. And the Montreal
They
Express.
just lost to Buffalo, so now you got to root for the Firewolves.
All right. Since you told me so, I will.
My son's on the team.
Yes, sir.
So.
Yes, sir. Your son's a hell of a player. That's for sure. Yes.
Oh, thanks very much. Hey, really great pleasure meeting you, and best of luck the rest of the way. Really enjoyed having you on.
Likewise. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Well done.
And thanks again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Jack Piatelli, I'm Kyle Devitt. See you next time.